how many different twists and turns has your impression of the Arraez trade taken since it was executed back in May of last year? Considering what they got, the timing of it, and the guys they got in return at the moment, the way that he has performed since then, in a way that even though we highlight the low strikeout rate, it's been a pretty significant downturn in terms of overall production compared to where he was as a Marlin. His defensive value has taken a step back. He's now a full-time first baseman for them, which is pretty significant step down on the defensive spectrum from second base. And, the power still is not there. The base running still not really there. And then on the other side of the equation, the three main prospects that the Marlins got in the deal, all still with the organization: Dylan Head and Jacob Marcy, Nathan Martorella. And among those, Marcy having a really great year and knocking on the door. So this is one that was, I think it's fair to say, was unpopular at the time from a Marlins perspective when it was made. But how does it sit with you now, with Marcy kind of on the doorstep of debuting and Arraez still doing some impressive things, but as an individual value player, being somebody that is a lot closer to being average than he is to being extraordinary?
Yeah, I mean, for when he was with us, the Marlins, he had a career year. That was his best season by any metric you want to look at. So when he got off to the cold start the year after and the Marlins traded him, there was a lot of hurt amongst the fan base. We just had a successful season. He's just had a career year. And you expect him to continue with that success. There's no reason. He's got that skill. We know that he doesn't strike out. The contact rate's going to be massive. The defense, when he was with the Marlins, I was defensive of his defense. The stats and the numbers didn't quite sort of tell the whole story. They never do. And as a stat person, that feels weird to say. When you watched him play, yes, he didn't, make the worldly plays, but he made the everyday plays. He'd be pretty good with those. So you knew that he was a little bit of a liability defensively at second base, but not so much that you couldn't play him there every day and really affect the team too badly. So let's move on now to sort of what he's done for San Diego. And pretty much everything's been the same, apart from, if you look at the BABIP, it's changed year on year and gone down each year. And the batting average has gone with that. He's such a one-trick pony. I don't say that as a negative. It's just factual. He's a contact hitter, and he's going to live and die by the BABIP. There's not enough power to out-hit that. There's no speed as such, especially on the bases. He's not going to beat out too many infield ground balls. That's going to keep it a little bit lower as well. So the actual return that the Padres have got from Arraez over the last 2 years, I think, is a 0 FWAR this season, and he was a 1.1 last season. Bear in mind that he was a 3.5 for the Marlins when he was last with them for the full season. So in a way, you look at it and yes, it's upsetting that the Marlins moved on from him. But if you also take into effect the contract number, yes, the Marlins did eat pretty much 95% of the contract last year, but if they hadn't traded him, they would have had to extend him, not maybe extend him, but pay through the next year of arbitration, like the Padres did. And I'm sure they're ruining now the $14-something million that they're paying him for. Let's face it, no return of value for a player that's a contact hero only, who's also not hitting 300 at the moment, and he's at first base. I think he's a 102 WRC plus for the season at first base. That just doesn't work. You need somebody at first base, and the Marlins are seeing the struggle with that as well. If you've got a guy below or around 100 WRC plus at first base, you are going to struggle as a baseball team. First base is supposed to be where you put a defensively limited player, but that can carry his value with the bat. And Arraez, unfortunately, isn't doing either of those right now.
If you want to really twist the circumstances around and to support Arraez staying as a Marlin, his production at first base this year is better than what they're getting from their current first baseman. Of course, last year he was exclusively second base for the team. And I think the other angle of this, Nate, is that with him out of the way, they were able to discover what they had in Otto Lopez, and then related to that, discovering what they had in X as well, and being able to play both those guys at second base, and now being able to play them together on a daily basis. Like that in itself, it's still to be determined in terms of what they get from these prospects. As much as it's exciting to see what Marcy is doing, he hasn't done anything at the big league level yet. Nothing is guaranteed, but I think it's worth pointing out that by opening all those opportunities last year during a year where it was clear they weren't going to go anywhere competitively, that set up this team pretty well for the near-term future by finding both of those kind of under the radar middle infielders that are now everyday guys for this team.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, and that really gives the Marlins a huge leap in this trade. I so obviously think it's too easy to tell who a clear winner is now. Like you said, all players in the Wusako is gone. Nathan Martorella has been pretty horrid since coming over, and then you got Dylan Head, who's still struggling in single A. He does have, I think, 9 triples in Jupiter, which is absurd. And then, of course, the rise of Jacob Marcy this season. But it really did open the door for guys like who could be potential, along with Stowers, guys that could be here for a long time. Obviously, X, who is everyone knows that's my guy, and he does what Edwards does, but he has obviously less. He's going to K more. He's going to walk a little bit more, but he's also going to steal you some bases. Unfortunately, not doing it at the clip we expected this year. And he's also going to play a pretty damn good second base, which we have seen a lot of this year. And of course, Otto Lopez, who would have had to slide in maybe just take a day off for when Arraez takes the day off, slide him in a second, or maybe short and third. But those positions were pretty. At least when Arraez was here, we had Tim Anderson. We had the Tim Anderson experiment to watch, so that really didn't have much room for Otto. But freeing room for both those guys who are now a tandem in this lineup and should be mainstays at the top of this order make it, like I said, looked a lot better for Miami's side. I was as unpopular of this trade was at the time. I was so disappointed to see it, especially with how much of a fan favorite Arraez was. But if you just take a look back at what he does, it's really, as shout out to Alex Carver, it really is one exceptional tool followed by a lot of below average tools, to be frank with you. So it's wild to look at. Of course, no disrespect to Arraez, who was tremendous here in 2023 and is an amazing baseball player, obviously with a 2.9 K rate, which is like you said, Eli, in the day and age of baseball that we're in, that is just so incredible to see. And he's going to get, I think he's going to get a good deal in the offseason, whether it's from San Diego or another contender who could use a guy like Arraez, who doesn't strike out, going to get on base, and a great guy in the clubhouse. So it's going to be interesting to see how this trade continues to develop with the rise of Marcy. Like I said, and maybe me and Isaac's guy Dylan Head will figure it out. But it's one of Bennett's first trades, and it's one of his most fascinating so far.